Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kind of hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I'm your host today, Carrie Jarasinski. Across from me, the casual moviegoer, Tim Brayton, and our very own critic in residence, Brennan Klein. How did I do? Thanks.
Great. So hard.
I'm here for it. I'm sweating, but I'm here for it.
I relish any being put on a pedestal above Tim, which happens to me so infrequently. So I appreciate it.
So you're implicitly saying then that our normal casual moviegoer Carrie is below me, Brennan.
Only in the sense of the hierarchy of who has seen more movies, and that's not necessarily a qualitative judgment.
That is a very quantitative judgment, in fact.
Yeah.
This is all very fair, and don't be alarmed. This is going to be a triple co-hosted event today. It won't just be me, because it will quickly get derailed and we'll never stay on track, and we're going to have a 7-hour episode. But I tried to do the intro. I'm telling you, I'm coming in a little hot today. I don't want to tell you this.
Always a little hot.
I'm having a bit of a day. I don't know what you'd call it medically, but I think I'm unwell. I'm like, number one, I'm just pouring sweat right now.
I have the first question I would like to ask
Yes.
to pinpoint how you are doing, as you say, medically. How many caffeine drinks, how many coffees have you had today?
Okay.
Thus far.
I don't know exactly because, so when you fill up the coffee pot or you make a pot of coffee, Rob's out of town. Normally we do 10 up to the 10 line. And sometimes that goes badly. But this day where he is not here, I put it to the 6 line myself and I finished that. So exactly how many cups of coffee is that?
My assumption is that it is 3 because it's probably 6 times 8 ounces.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's pushed me right on into the sweat stage. And I just want to be really honest and transparent about something else. This is the fastest that I've ever prepped for an episode in the entire years that we've ever done this podcast. It was completed in about 7 minutes after receiving Brennan's message that we were recording in 15 minutes. And I asked for a 15-minute extension. At that point in time, I want to tell you, I had gone into a stage where I was sort of like organizing the house condiments. Like, ooh, here's a.
And to clarify, house condiments does not mean, dear listeners, you and I might think we have a large collection of mustards. What does house condiments mean, Carrie?
I was full into the sunscreen, bug spray, and hand sanitizer. So I was trying to find all of those throughout the house because they were in different places. And so I was spending a good deal of time this morning trying to find each of them and put them in their own buckets of house condiment. And I was
So were you
full on.
squirting them out into a bucket? They could scoop them out later at your pleasure?
They're all in different flavors. We have all kinds of sanitizer, all kinds of bug spray. Rob likes to buy the kind that like bugs like to feed on, like with lemon juice. And I like to buy the ones that are going to shave 5 years off your life with all the DEET. So we have different categories. I was categorizing them by size and color. Like what's happening to me?
I didn't want to say out loud, I hope you've sorted the bottles by color, because I didn't want to find out you hadn't. And the fact that you have makes me so happy.
It's just like, am I just grabbing at control? We're on day 5 of Rob being gone and out of town. And this is it. I'm wearing my great grandma's sweater. It's like 1,000 years old. I'm like sweating and I'm organizing hand sanitizer.
I will say this. So at one point you had to stand up to move around the room, and you You turned the camera off before you did that. I take for granted that's because you're not currently wearing pants.
So I am wearing pants mostly, but I don't know what state these pants are in, and they're gray. And with the sweating situation, I'm already just like, what is happening?
Are they dark gray?
They're dark gray, but the top is light gray. I mean, all kinds of gray.
With the sweating situation, are they dark gray?
Oh, I see. Darker.
Darker.
Yeah. And to top this whole thing off, how horrifying is this? Alice this morning is like on my phone. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm creating your Bitmoji. I'm like, what is a Bitmoji? She's like, I'm creating your Bitmoji. And then she's like, she turns the phone to me to show me my Bitmoji. And it is like, it's accurate, but wildly offensive. It's I am like, I do look like my great grandma. It's like I'm wearing all gray and like sweatpants and a sweater, and my hair is like in a disheveled bun. And I was like, oh, thank you for thinking of me.
I don't want to interrupt the momentum of you, because right now I feel like you are in a state that I want to feed, because I am not a good friend, and I want to contribute to your sense of mental imbalance. Mm-hmm. But I do need to ask, what is a Bitmoji?
Oh my gosh. We should be asking Brennan this question. Brennan, what is a Bitmoji?
It's a little caricature of yourself that you can put into different situations. So it's basically like on the old Wii thing, you can make like the me version of yourself.
Oh yes, I still have my old me from Antagony and Ecstasy is still my face on Letterboxd.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically that, but it's like you can put yourself in a little like comic strip situations where it's like, here's me playing ice hockey, or here's me taking out the trash, and you use that kind of caricature, and it gets put into all these different situations.
Okay.
It's from like 7 years ago. I don't know how Alice came across it.
I don't know either. I really don't know. But again, I think it's more detailed, Tim, than you recall. It's not like the Wii where everybody's attractive because you kind of look the same. It's like she has like a bird hanging out of my hair, which is also accurate, but it's like wisps of hair everywhere. Like my hair is multicolor because it is of shades of gray and brown. And it's like, I mean, again, I do look indigent in the picture that she provided me. But again, I was like, well, she doesn't see it negatively. She's just trying to do it accurately. So I just tried.
That's the worst.
I know.
That's the worst of it, is that the child doesn't have a judgment. They only see the truth.
Yes.
And the truth is wicked and evil. This is why adults know to suppress it.
I know. I just smiled and was like, thanks. She's like, do you like the slippers? I'm like, I love the slippers that are on this very old woman that you've created. So this is where we are today. And I think we're coming in hot on what already would have been a hot episode. This is our top 5 movies you wish more people would watch, which leads us down many rabbit holes and probably contentious opinions about the quality of movies that we're going to cover today.
Yeah, I will say I'm impressed you were able to throw together a list in 15 minutes. This is one of the longest it's ever taken me to assemble a list, because it took me so goddamn long to like even start coalescing towards what that meant to me. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit, but yeah, we picked this topic somewhat in honor of 3,000 Years of Longing, George Miller's new film about a djinn played by Idris Elba that I at least have not seen. I'm not sure which of you have seen it yet, but we wanted to do a little wish themed episode, and Carrie came up with this one, and I thought it was a really fun concept. And again, I think it's a fun concept, Carrie, because I feel you and I are going to start screaming at each other by the time it's over.
Yeah, well, the way that I feel like this is going to play out is that Carrie's movies will be contentious, and Tim's movies, Carrie will have not seen or heard of, and thus will not have an opinion, negative or positive, about.
These are fair. This is why we need you, Brennan.
That feels right. That tracks.
And Brennan, you will be able to ride that middle. So ride it hard. Like cancel that. Whoever's editing this episode, cancel that part out. But really ride that middle of like, you're going to probably know what Tim's talking about. So if it's a doozy, if it's bad, make sure you pounce on that. And then simultaneously, I think, Brennan, you will know all of my movies, even though they're not well known in some cases, but we'll get there. And I think you'll be able to double down on the quality of these movies and why people should see them. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Oh, me too. But yeah, I am curious, Tim, to hear the criteria that you brought to your list. Like, how did you kind of shape this?
Ultimately, I never settled on anything other than kind of just, if it feels right, it goes on the list. There's a very one of these things is not like the other quality here that I think everyone will immediately understand which of my 5 sort of was following a different rule set. But for me, the question came down to, these are movies I wish more people would see, more people would be willing to give a chance to. And the question that I never really fully resolved in my mind was, who are people?
Yes, yeah.
Like, do I mean every man, woman, and child in these United States, or in this globe, really, this entire beautiful blue marble? I want every person to have seen these movies. Is it that I think among the film cognoscenti, these films are somehow unaccountably underseen? Is it that I specifically want Carrie to have seen these movies? These were all 3 options that sort of crossed my mind. And to give you an example of a film I did not put down, I think, so there's this film from 1928 called The Docks of New York that I think is superb. I think it's one of the absolute all-time best silent films. And it's not one you necessarily hear people talk about in the same way that, like, they talk about like Passion of Joan of Arc or The General or things like that. And so I was like, yeah, this is a film that I wish everybody would have seen, this particular silent. And then on a hunch, I went to Letterboxd to see how many of my Letterboxd mutuals had seen it, and 19 of them had. And it's like, well, that's a lot of people for a 1928 silent, so I can't count that. So like, it's kind of hard for me to pin down. I have a sense for most of mine, there's a mixture sort of films that I think are just underseen by people who should have seen them, and films that I think people know that they ought to see but avoid because they feel a little medicinal.
Got it. And is there any order to your list?
Mostly how important, like from least to most important, it is to me that more people see these, with the exception of 5, which I put on sort of as a giant fuck you gesture.
Perfect. And for me, I had a similarly tough time kind of pinning down this list, because so when we were kind of tossing out the ideas for what this episode would be, the original phraseology was movies I wish people would give a chance. And so I kind of had a 5 kind of floating around in my brain, but then when we landed on movies I wish more people would watch, that completely like shifted my perspective on what
Interesting.
I was
to
doing.
me, the 2 phrases were fundamentally synonyms, which is why I swapped one in for the other, because it felt more mellifluous.
No, see, I figured that was the case, but it completely changed my perspective on it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So the idea that more people should give something a chance, it gave me the idea that they weren't watching it because there was some sort of impediment or roadblock to them, or they're like, this is in a genre I don't like, or this stars someone who isn't popular right now, or whatever. But just in terms of movies I wish more people would watch, I kind of turned that around in my brain, and it's movies that I really like, that in order to talk about it with anyone, I've had to show it to someone. It's not something I've ever brought up and someone has said, oh, I've seen that, let's talk about it. Okay. So this is contextual to, the circles that I roll in, and also my kind of broader Letterboxd and social media sphere. So some of these are going to be movies that if you were in certain regions, more people would know about it, but not in America, or not in the kind of people that interact with me on a daily basis.
I'm in complete alignment with you, Brennan. I think those 2 things are very different. And because I couldn't choose, I did a hybrid of both. So I was like, what Tim said, like underknown, people didn't hear about it, like the wish you more people would watch. And then I also went with the, like, exactly what you said, like, oh, it's got an actor, I'm skipping that one. Like, and it actually was really good. Like, maybe got a bad rap unnecessarily. But if you were to see it, you would see that it's really good. Like, you should give it a chance. So it's like a hybrid of both of those.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Tim, you never clarified, or if you did, I was drinking more coffee at the time. Did you lean towards me or the cognos, or whatever you called the cinephile cognos?
I did not lean towards you specifically,
okay.
Although that is the reason why I was very proud that I made the Grave of the Fireflies poster, because I know you just watched it, and I know you just hated the shit out of it.
I thought that was Totoro. I thought that was.
Oh my God.
Wait. Hello, Totoro. I thought that was the Totoro movie.
My neighbor Totoro.
Yes,
But no,
yeah.
it's Grave of the Fireflies.
You're so mean.
It's easy to confuse those two movies. They premiered as part of a double feature.
That's why. That's definitely why I confused them. Oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, that umbrella's looking a little raggedy for them that I remember. But
Totoro did not have an umbrella. He had a
no,
leaf.
I thought
They had a
that.
leaf. The little girl does have an umbrella.
That's
true.
See, but I was picturing the poofy guy with the umbrella, so it's all wrong. But you're cruel. You're cruel. I've still been trying to burn that one out of my mind. So thank you for that.
Let's put it this way. My list is in some sense made out of 4 Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh my god.
I'm not adding this. I'm going to add in one thing that I don't want to anymore, but I was going to say one more layer to this. I think we should all commit to watching one movie that we are most sold on from each other's list.
I get to pick which one you have to watch.
We
Carrie.
get to choose. We get to choose. We get to listen to the list, and you get to choose which one you're going to watch. And Tim, before you try to game me on this, if you've already seen it, you can't rewatch it because there's one on here that's so good, but I know you've seen it. So here's the criteria. We each have to, at the end of this episode, choose which one we will watch from each other's by our own accord, and then you can't have seen it. That's the criteria.
Could this be the topic of Pass the Popcorn next week?
Yes, it could.
Could we commit to that time frame?
I mean,
let's not do that publicly.
No, let's not do it publicly, but maybe. And obviously, I think that We'll put a pin in that one, Brennan. But I like where your head's at.
We'll put a pin in that. And one last thing about my list, I did cross-reference with Letterboxd and looked for ones that were fewer people had seen overall. And also my list is kind of ranked in ascending order of films I'd be willing to stake my reputation on making people watch.
Okay.
I can't commit to that criteria. That's
fair enough.
Not on mine. Although I will say, even though I took only 7 minutes, it rushed over me. And I have like a little bit of a brain wiring thing where I'm best under pressure. So like my best work, my best organizing happens when I feel like I have a deadline. So I feel really, really good about where I'm at. Side note.
All right, well, let's. I am dying to hear these lists.
All right.
So where are we starting when Rob's not here? We never really established that.
I don't know.
Let's just pick somebody at random and start with them.
All right, Brennan, you go first.
Okay, great. Well, my number 5 is from 2020. Oh, actually, my films are also accidentally in reverse chronological order, which I think feeds into Tim's idea that the older the movie is, the better it is. But this movie is from 2020. It's actually the last film I saw in theaters before the shutdown from the pandemic. It is a Bollywood action movie called Baaghi 3, directed by Ahmed Khan, starring Tiger Shroff. It is a Bollywood action movie. It is basically the film RRR, which became a huge sensation earlier this year among the film cognoscenti. If you liked RRR but wish it was in much worse taste, then Baaghi 3 is going to be for you. It is about a man who is shirtless 80% of the time, whose younger brother is this bumbling idiot who gets a job with the police force. And again, any action cinema from any region tends to be more of a right-wing or conservative bent. That's just how it goes. So if you have issues with fetishization of the police, you're not going to love this movie. But if you are a cinema person who's able to set personal feelings aside, it is just a wild maximalist epic about this guy, first of all, helping his brother succeed in the police force by just beating up a bunch of gang members and then giving him the credit. But then his brother gets kidnapped by a cartel of, I believe, Syrian radicalist terrorists who he then has to destroy hundreds of these people in order to get to save his brother. And it's just got all kinds of shit like, I'm shirtless and I'm doing the splits and sliding under a tank, or I'm doing a sidekick and 3 goons have smashed into my foot at the same time. And it's just, it's beautiful. It has a dance sequence at a wedding, like all Bollywood movies do. And it's this kind of glorious, over the top action junk food, miraculous thing.
I will say that I have firmly been sold. Do I need to see Baaghi 1 and Baaghi 2 in order to appreciate Baaghi 3?
No. Like a lot of Tiger Shroff, Ahmed Khan action franchises, basically the only thing that any sequel carries over from the original is the star and the name of the character, and then they kind of redo everything else around them.
All right, excellent.
Interesting, Tim, because I was writing down, do not pick Brennan's number 5 for your option. Because I already couldn't remember the name, so I was like, not number 5 was the note that I had. So
yeah, and it'll be written in the show notes, but it's spelled Baaghi.
Baaghi. Okay.
I believe it means rebel in Hindi, but most Bollywood movies don't get translated English titles, so I went with the title that's most commonly.
No, you gotta go with the title that people can find it under if they're hunting through the Netflix or the Hulu or whatnot. Do you know where one can see this movie by any chance?
Shoot, I can double check really quick. I think it was on Prime Video for a hot minute, but because they have a lot of Bollywood stuff. If you're interested in Bollywood, Prime Video and Netflix both have a really good selection. But let me double check.
Okay, Brennan, while you look at that, Tim, let's jump to your number 5.
Let's jump to my number 5. So my number 5 is sort of, I think, the quintessential example of a movie that everybody knows about. And by everybody, I probably don't mean you, Carrie, but everybody else. Everybody knows about, but doesn't want to watch because it is notorious. And I've decided to use my 5th spot to basically say, it's okay. You should watch this. It's not as bad as you think, because you probably think that it's pretty bad. Because my number 5 is Pier Paolo Pasolini's 1975 final film, Saló, or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Oh, okay? I see what you're doing here.
I told you, it's a fuck you gesture. Here's the thing you probably know about Saló, if all you know is that it exists. You probably know that it's the film where they make people eat human shit. And the thing is, that's only like a minute of it. And it's not even a terribly graphic minute.
I think actually, so far, I'd see this over Baaghi. I'm actually really, really into like the hilarity that comes with fecal matter.
Well, that's the thing. Is it a hilarious movie? Maybe if you're a real fucking weird Italian Marxist, I don't know. But this is an adaptation of a novel by the Marquis de Sade about a group of. It's been moved up to the present day, so it's kind of about a group of like post-Nazi fascists who grab a bunch of young people and decide to torture them by forcing them through degraded and violent and sexually humiliating actions. And it's very much a like anti-fascist satire. I mean, Pasolini, again, he's a gay Marxist. He's clearly his politics are going to be in the direction of, fuck the Nazis. And this is a movie about fucking the Nazis, as it were. And I think it's actually very smart in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it's a juvenile provocation because it's kind of has to be, because it's kind of what the Marquis de Sade sort of is. That's what Pasolini sort of is. But I just feel like people have it in their heads that this is a much harder watch than it is. And so I'm using my 5th spot to basically say you can make it through. I promise. It's not 2 hours of coprophagia. Or coprophagia. That's not what it is.
You're using all of these words that I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's
poop eating, Carrie?
Oh, okay, sure.
It is not 2 hours of people just eating poop.
Okay. What is that called again? Coproplagia?
Coprophagia.
Okay, coprophagia. I'm going to start using that. I've never used that word, but
you should.
I think I'm going to infuse it into my vocabulary.
I hope you don't have too many occasions to use it, but when you do,
we'll see.
That's what you should use.
I imagine most will be on this podcast.
Again, it's an important movie. It's the last movie by a very important director. I think you should see it.
All right.
Personally.
Right now, that's tied for my last choice currently with Brennan's, but we shall see. I'm going to pull into my number 5, which I'm going to turn off video, which I guess doesn't help me because I can still see you guys. But I do not really want to see Tim's reaction to this, but this is coming from a very genuine place in my heart. And so just know that I don't mean to start a fight, basically, is what I'm saying. So
I'm excited about this.
Kind of tying into what Brennan was talking about, there is nudity in this movie. You're not.
You're not.
But I mean it. But I mean it from
No. No.
I mean it with
Absolutely
all my...
not.
I love this movie. I still do.
Why?
I don't know. No, I do. Okay, Brennan, I'm going to try to sell you on it because it might make your list. But what if I were to tell you these two lovely cousins are stranded on this island as children? Okay?
Oh.
And then what if I told you only the will to survive could sort of bring them through the years of surviving on this island? And sorry if you're a little turned off by some tasteful nudity, but if you can handle it, which I think you can, this movie is really, really good. It's one of the last good survivalist movies that's out there. This is 1980s, The Blue Lagoon.
Wow. Also, I much prefer tasteless nudity, so that you're not selling me.
I got good news. I got real good news about the nudity.
Well, so because they're Brooke Shields is underage. Are they both underage?
No, Christopher Atkins was 18, and Brooke Shields was sworn in public. All of the nudity was done by a body double.
Okay.
It's good.
Choose to believe that's accurate, because otherwise I was complicit in a crime when we did this for our recent watch party, which I already feel like I was complicit in the crime.
It's not that bad. You guys made such a big deal out of it. Everybody's in the chat and the watch party just going crazy because they're like, oh, like I saw something. Like there was a taint count that started at one point in the chat. Like, yeah, there is some of that there. But if you can look past some of the nudity...
It is a specific camera angle you need to get a visible taint. What? I've never seen this movie. What the fuck
this is
going on?
This is why you have to see it. It's like, there's a really beautiful soundtrack on it. It's all layered in. And then it's a little bit about a love story that infuses into it. And then it becomes about survival. And will they or won't they survive? I won't spoil that, because if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. And that's what happens. I think you should see it, Brennan.
So is this Flowers in the Attic, but swept away?
This is preteen gangbang, but legal.
It is tasteful, Brennan. I consider it. Consider it over Saló, the poop movie, for sure. Because this movie,
is
again,
the Blue Lagoon on the Criterion on a Bluray?
I think so.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix too, for free.
That is easier for me to access for less money.
See?
It's on Netflix? Okay.
Yeah.
So
loved it.
In theory, it has to be legal. There has to be documentation proving that the film is legal, because you can watch it right now and not have the FBI pound your doors down.
Yeah. Think about it. Just think about it, Brennan. God. Just consider it.
I will think about it.
Okay. All right. Well,
do you want to see an 18-year-old in a really fucking terrible frosted wig hang dong?
Kind of.
See?
It's got you covered, man.
See?
Okay, great.
There's also like a little Nirvana scene. Or wait, what's the one with the t-shirt that like the little baby is like reaching for money and it's nude?
Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, that's Nirvana.
Yeah. You'll have a little of
Wait,
that
are you saying
too.
there's a naked baby in it?
There's so much naked baby in it.
What? Do they have a baby?
Spoiler alert.
Shit. Oh, okay. Delete all of that. Okay.
You had to eat the baby?
They ate a baby. No, they found a random baby and they ate it. But you have to watch the whole movie, Brennan, to find out.
I'm watching the Blue Lagoon now.
Here we go. Okay, Brennan, let's go to your number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is a much tamer movie than either of those. It is the 2013 Dan Mazer rom-com, I Give It a Year. Sorry, I said that weird. It's called I Give It a Year. It's about a newly married couple played by Rose Byrne and Rafe Spall, who during the year following their wedding kind of immediately start to resent each other and both meet people who are much better matches for them and are challenged about what they are meant to do with this. Rafe Spall's match is played by Anna Faris. Rose Byrne's is played by Australian person you recognize but probably don't really care about, Simon Baker. I think he was on The Mentalist for a long time. But the cast also includes Stephen Merchant, Minnie Driver, and Olivia Colman in a small role. We love her. It's this real sour, acid-tongued romantic comedy that doesn't it doesn't take the tropes of the rom-com too seriously. And look, if you got out of seeing either Neighbors or Spy without a like 110% commitment to Rose Byrne as a comic actress, we don't have the same sense of humor.
Double down on that. I love her. And in Neighbors, she's amazing. And we replay that because I probably feel like her now at this stage of my life. So like when she goes out and she's trying to tell the neighbors to like bring down the music, and she's like, "Can you bring it down? You bring it down," and then they can't hear, and then she like is screaming to like bring down the music. Like we replay that scene all the time. I think she's fabulous. You're selling me right out of the gate just having her in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell me here is a rom-com in which Rose Byrne has one of the two leads, I am already pretty much sold. Like you don't really have to do a whole lot else.
Well, then I won't do a whole lot else, but there is also a very funny threesome scene involving Anna Faris that is one of the better threesome scenes I have encountered.
I mean, I'm glad that you have a lit. That should be another podcast episode potentially.
Oh, totally. That's a good top 5.
I do not have a single one that I would add to that list. I don't think I've ever
What's
seen
great is that Brennan, you would probably bring this film back, and I would probably bring back Saló. So we could just really call it a remake of this episode.
Perfect.
I love it. So far, Brennan, you're winning right now for me. That sounds really, really good. And I'm already curious about, like, there's so many ways that you could take the ending of that I'm already like eager to find out what happens.
Yeah, no spoilers.
No
but yeah,
spoilers.
it's an interesting movie that's just clever and fun, and you know, it's not like a 10 out of 10 best movie you've ever seen, but it is an incredibly charming rom-com from a time that we were not getting those.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, Tim, give us your number 4.
So my number 4 is a cult movie that doesn't have a cult for some reason, and I think it should. And so that's really why I've got it on this list. It is a 1983 Canadian animated post-apocalyptic sci-fi musical called Rock and Rule, which in the future, humanity has been made extinct. Meanwhile, animals, particularly dogs and rats, have become anthropomorphic and have recreated the music industry. And it's basically a story of how in this like irradiated post-apocalyptic hellscape, every movie you've ever seen about a young guy trying to make it in the corrupt music industry happens, but like sort of in this garish, hideous cartoon nightmare world, which I know is not necessarily a way of selling it, but it is not a beautiful film, but it's a very cool looking film. Like the design of it's really interesting. And it has like this kind of weirdly all-star cast of like music type people from the early 80s, contributing work to this fairly good original musical, if you like a sort of new wave-ish. I mean, I don't know exactly where I would put the musical genre, but there's a sort of like power poppy, not exactly rock, not exactly pop sort of vibe. Notable voices in this movie include Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, and Debbie Harry of Blondie, who plays like this female lead. So that's kind of the general window of music that we're looking at insofar as you can fit those people on the same musical genre. But it's again, it's this movie that feels tailor-made to have just a passionate cult following. And as far as I'm aware, that doesn't really exist. Like it's a movie that even among animation people that I like talk to, I've never actually met someone in real life who has seen this film. And that's weird to me.
I would say
it's about pop singing humanoid rats.
I was just gonna say, based on your explanation, I understand why. And I now have a tie for last place. I don't know, like between this and Saló, I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know where to go. So I'm hoping that your
Carrie,
list
I would
starts
like
to
to
look up.
earnestly promise you that Rock and Rule is the film of my list that you would have the best time watching.
Okay, that's good to know. Is it a little bit Isle of Dogs?
Very little.
Very little. Okay. I was swinging there, just trying for it. I thought maybe. Good to know that it's the most digestible, but I'm hoping you can sell me on a different plot line in one of your additional movies. But
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, and
rock and roll.
I would definitely say there is a contingent of rock and rule folks on the alternate ending Discord that I've heard them mention it. Because it totally feels like it belongs in that conversation of that kind of string of rock and roll movies between like Phantom of the Paradise and that like disco trio musical that Tim, you and I talked about with Can't Stop the Music and Apple, and then you go on to Shock Treatment. Like it feels like it fits in this kind of weird timeline of cult film, but it just is not.
Shock Treatment to me is a perfect comparison of something that it's inexplicable that it doesn't have a bigger cult following. Because I at least find
me.
Well, not necessarily that you would like one if you like the other, just in terms of like, I find it bizarre that Shock Treatment isn't like better known among the sort of people who know that kind of film, right? Like, I'm not saying Shock Treatment should have been a $600 million hit at the box office. I'm saying the crypto sequel to Rocky Horror should not be as obscure as it is.
Absolutely.
And I feel that way about rock and roll.
Well, I'm being sold on it, and I'm curious if Carrie, I do want to hear you sell me on a movie that's not about cousins fucking, unless that's the theme of your list.
That's...
say.
Okay, the next one's it's not cousins, so it's strangers, but they're doing that in this movie as well.
Okay.
So this one, Brennan, I think, gosh, I gotta believe that you would absolutely love this movie. You're gonna have a hard time choosing because you're gonna want to go Blue Lagoon so you can see the mystique. This one I know for sure that you'll absolutely love and not get arrested watching. I saw this one's from 2020. Rob and I can't remember what the occasion was, but we interviewed the director of this movie back in 2020, and I don't think it was a Sundance movie, so it might have just been random. I was trying to remember, but this is
probably during that period in 2020 where everyone was like, well, how is anyone going to watch our movie? We will talk to everyone about it.
That could be true. And I loved talking to this guy who's the writer and director. This is Matt Pfeiffer. But this is 2020's Cicada. Do you guys remember me talking about this ever?
Not even
vaguely.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Is it gay?
Yes.
Okay, I remember seeing the trailer for this.
No, Brennan, now you're bringing it back to me by you saying that. Remember, this is when we had the conversation about the gays. Do you remember this? And you were like, oh, there's a look. And I was like, what's the look? And you're like,
no, that was us talking about Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, you're right. Well, this is another gay movie.
And equally famous.
This is, you know what though? I think
I feel like the hole you're digging, Carrie, is getting deep at such an amazing rate that I'm almost not sure how it's happening.
It's I'm gonna crawl myself out while I tell you about it, but it is
so far. Just to recap, we've had the gays as a phrase that was used unironically.
Oh no, like the gays, look, like a J with a Z, like a Z, a GAZE. Like, okay, so Brennan told me that a way to go pick people up, like at the park or things like that, is like to like go there, and then there's a look you can give people that are like, it's like a hard stare, right, Brennan?
Yeah, like when you're cruising in the park.
Oh, cruising.
There's a bit of eye contact that you make where you know you're going to go off in the bushes and fuck.
Yes. This happens to Tim all the time. So he knows. It does not. No. But so the gaze with a Z happens in this movie, and then that does happen. They do find a bush. But it is just the loveliest love story ever. Okay. So it's this guy lives in New York. He's dealing with a lot of childhood trauma and trying to work through how that manifests in relationships later in life. But the focal point of the movie then becomes how he goes from sort of like maybe some unhealthy behaviors that he has and meets this one person who is just such a grounding figure and is so lovely. And then it becomes about the two of them and their journey. And then also like how they start to like introduce each other to family and things like that, like different components. It just feels very sort of like rides a line between being kind of feeling like a documentary because it is their actual own personal experiences from both of the actors sort of melded together into one story. But at the same time, it ends up just feeling like, a little When Harry Met Sally-ish too, maybe not. That's a bad example. But it's so sweet. It's just a really sweet love story. And I was obsessed with it after I saw it. And then because it was 2020 and because it was a tiny budget movie, of course, it probably didn't get seen by a lot of people. And I think it should. This is Cicada from 2020.
Cool.
This has nothing to do with my list, but I wish that I had a tailored for you version of the list, Carrie, because part of me really wants to like have you see Andrew Hay's Weekend, just to see.
I was literally just going to say that.
Andrew Hay's Weekend?
Weekend.
Yeah, it's called Weekend.
Oh, Weekend. Oh, I was like, I thought it was like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but no.
Andrew Hay is the director.
Okay, got it.
Haigh.
It's so good.
It's a film that I want you to see.
It is good.
It is
good.
Okay.
It is good. I don't know if that is the takeaway you would have from it, but I want you to see it anyway.
Okay, I'm taking notes. So that was my number 4, which means, Brennan, we're to your number 3, right?
Yeah. My number 3 is a 2012 horror comedy by the brothers Cameron and Colin Cairns. It is Australian. It's called 100 Bloody Acres. It's about a group of 20-somethings who are on their way to a music festival. They accidentally stumble across the secret of Morgan's organic fertilizer, which is that they use dead human bodies from car accidents in their fertilizer to make it work really well.
Spoiler.
And they are kidnapped for their troubles for discovering this secret. And will they be made into the fertilizer, or will they find a way to escape? I don't know.
That sounds so good too.
It's a very goofy, silly comedy, and the brothers who run this organic fertilizer farm are played by Damon Harriman, who played he recently played Charles Manson in 2 different projects. He played him in that one shot of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he also played him, I believe, on the Netflix series Mindhunters. But here he's playing this absolutely hapless goofball who has fallen deeply in love with the female member of the group that they have kidnapped. And the other brother is played by Angus Sampson, who he's Tucker in the Insidious movies, like one of Lin Shaye's helpers, like the big giant guy. But he's also in Mad Max Fury Road in a small role as the organic mechanic. But it's very sweet, very gory, and just super amusing. And this is definitely one of those movies I've showed it to like 3 people in my life so I can have the chance to talk about it with anyone ever.
Did they love it?
Yeah, I have found you have to have a certain sensibility as far as like, gory horror comedy, but it's such a deeply pleasant, fun roller coaster ride that I find it hard to believe that someone who doesn't have like the most base objections to horror would have a good time with it.
Have you seen this, Tim?
I have not seen this, but I feel like I really, really want to.
Okay, great.
Based on this conversation, I feel like I don't know what your 1 and 2 are, Brennan, but it would be very tough for me to imagine either one of them feeling more like, ooh, yeah, to me than what you just have been saying.
Well, I know for a fact that my next 2, you have seen both of them, so I think
perfect.
You're right.
Perfect. Then this will be my one from your list that I commit to.
Hooray! Okay, great.
You don't know that. You might want to go with give it a year. You might actually. What about Baaghi? Don't forget about Baaghi.
Well, I've heard him describe both of those.
Okay.
And neither one of them sounded this good.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see where we land. All right, Tim, try to sell us on your number 3.
So I wanted a silent film, and because I think everyone should see silent films. I think we should only watch silent films. I think we should commit as a culture to not watching talkies anymore, because talkies are bad and silents are good. That being said, I did limit myself to 1. And I wanted to scrounge a bit and find one that I thought was suitably underseen. Not like obscure, not like I'm going to go digging through like the archives of 1912 to see if I can find the most random ass feature, but a film that I do think is really great. Like, this is probably a top 5 silent film of all time to me. But I also get the impression that it is not terribly well seen, even really by the kind of people who watch this kind of movie. So the one I've picked is a 1930 Soviet montage film. It is one of the last of the truly great Soviet montage films. And Soviet montage, quick history lesson, Starting in 1925, a bunch of Soviet filmmakers and theorists, including people like Sergei Eisenstein, very famously, who made Battleship Potemkin, and Lev Kuleshov, a teacher and filmmaker, began developing an idea of how to make movies that is sort of very based on editing and based on the kind of combination of images. And for a few years there, you get some of the most extraordinary movies ever made. I think the Soviet montage movement, which lasted about 6 or 7 years, probably of all the major cinema movements in the history of the world, had the highest hit rate. I think it is like probably 80% of them are flat out masterpieces. And, you know, a lot of the montage films are fairly well known. Certainly Eisenstein's Strike and Battleship Potemkin are, I think, both well known among the kind of people who are going to see those kinds of films. Like, obviously, if you just grab a man off the street and say, hey, have you ever seen Sergei Eisenstein's Strike? The answer is going to be no, but they're not hidden films. Film that I do think is slightly hidden, again from 1930, is Alexander Dovzhenko's Earth, which is the third film in what he called his Ukraine trilogy. Dovzhenko was Ukrainian before Ukraine became just, you know, part of the USSR. And the films in question are all sort of, the films are Zvenigora, Arsenal, and this one, Earth, are all sort of about like the life of Ukrainians sort of trying to get by in this very transitional period in that part of Europe. Earth in particular is all about a farming collective, because again, these are Soviet films, they're propaganda films ultimately. They're very, by design, pro-communist. And this one is basically about the arrival of a new tractor into this small farming community and how it transforms the lives of the people there, but not without a sense of loss and a sense of trauma and struggle. So it is ultimately pro-tractor in a way. Like, it is saying, you know, we need to move forward, we need to become more efficient and better Soviets. But it is willing to say, you know, there is something beautiful and precious that is lost when we push ourselves towards modernity. And it's just this incredible depiction of people living on the land and people farming, and just like the sort of bonds that happen between the kind of people who function in this environment. It is my favorite Soviet montage film. And again, I feel like most of the oxygen gets taken up by Eisenstein. What's left over is generally given to films like Storm Over Asia, The End of St. Petersburg, or Mother, which is another film by Dovzhenko. I think Mother's by Dovzhenko. Certainly Arsenal is, and I think Arsenal's better known than this. Earth to me is just a really special movie. And again, it's towards the end of the Soviet montage moment, which I think is something everyone should know about who cares about film history, which is not everybody, but for those of you who does include, I think this is kind of a central feeling. So
just to clarify, you said it's very pro-tractor. Is that a stance? Are some people anti-tractor?
I wouldn't say it's very pro-tractor. What was that?
Are people anti-tractor?
Well, there's this idea that, you know, the tractor is kind of a symbol of crushing the traditional ways.
Okay.
You know, and the tractor is like it within the narrative of the film. The tractor becomes kind of a point of contention.
Okay.
Between the characters, whether the tractor is a good or an evil thing.
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody or met anybody that's anti-tractor, but it's good to know that they're out there from this movie.
Well,
it's the context of the Ukrainian Soviet Republic in 1930 is
different.
Very specific.
It's very different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And that movie does sound interesting. I've actually seen a couple films from like the Russian silent era. Obviously, Battleship Potemkin, you don't escape film school without having seen that. But I've also seen Circus, which is reasonably good. But this sounds very, very cool, and I'll check it out eventually.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Would you say, Tim, is this movie pretty boring? Would you say, if you're being honest with yourself?
I would never say that. Also,
Okay.
I was wrong about Mother. Mother's by Vsevolod Podolkin. But who also did End of St. Petersburg? No, I would say that Earth is one of the most enthralling films of its period.
Okay. All right. I'm tempted to prove you wrong by watching it, but all right, I'll take your word.
If you're asking, will you find it boring?
Yes.
You will find it very boring.
Okay. All right. Because you did lose me just in
you
the
will fall
synopsis.
asleep.
Okay. I was actually dozing off during you talking about it, to be totally honest. So that's what I was thinking. But sometimes I'm into those. Like sometimes I do want something that can just lull me into a good REM. So
Well, we'll see if I can talk you into seeing one of my top 2 then.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I will give you my 3. And this one is just, this one, again, your heart's going to start racing while I just tell you about it. This is going to really get you going. So what if I told you, and there's no nudity. I don't think so. Or as much as I remember, there's no nudity in this movie, but it's still thrilling. And I love, and I know you guys too, an inspo movie, like something that inspires you to be like better and greater than you are today. Like even if you're great now, you can be better. And by doing that, it's like, how can I go out and achieve something that nobody thinks that I can achieve? And it's so hard. And yet if you have the perseverance and you can go through many, many training montages, you too can overcome that adversity and become a world-class horse diver.
Horse diver?
Like a horse diver. Have you ever heard of a horse diver?
You are a horse who dives?
Dives, yes. So they're like back in the 50s, they used to do this thing, which was probably like not great for horses in retrospect, but they used to like bring horses up and then the horse would jump off into a pool of water like 50 feet below. It's a thing. They used to do it at the circus.
And are you riding the horse while this happens?
This person is Gabrielle Anwar, if that doesn't give it away, is riding the horse. Anybody?
It actually doesn't.
So it's an inspiring film about animal abuse.
Yeah, that's what it is. And a love story layered in with it with the steamiest guy that you ever remember from the 80s, Michael Schofling. Anybody?
Ooh.
Michael Schofling.
I'm going to look up this
He's
person.
the guy he's the love interest from that pulls up and picks up Molly Ringwald in the cool car. Do you remember this, Tim?
In what
I'm dissociating
movie?
right now.
Is it Pretty in Pink? Maybe Pretty in Pink?
16 Candles?
16
apparently?
Candles? In 16 Candles.
Oh, okay. So he was Jake Ryan.
Yes.
But he didn't really have much of a career otherwise. Okay,
what is the name of your number 3 film?
Well, I thought you guys were going to get there, but obviously not. This is 1991's Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
And in fact, I just found out Michael Schofling's final film.
Is it? Is it really? Oh my
I
gosh.
think he died. I think he just stopped asking.
Once you've made your defining artwork, Brennan, why would you go through the facade of pretending you have anything left to say?
Yeah.
It's all right.
When you have made your statement to humanity.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. I'm so glad we're on the same page. This is just, it's like 50s Depression era. Is that the Depression was in the 50s, 40s, 30s?
I'm sure lots of people were depressed in the 50s.
It feels like it's in the Depression, but it might not be. But it is just a love story. Like I said, she doesn't even know how to ride a horse. And then through, again, a series of really persevering through the challenges, she does eventually become an excellent horse diver. But I'm not going to tell you the spoiler because I want you to choose this movie too. Things go awry. It's not all sunshine and roses for her. Something really bad happens. Is a
the
part
pool
of
isn't filled on the last time.
I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. But then she has I can't look at your face. She has to come over another hurdle of adversity, and I'm going to tell you it's tough. And oh my gosh, I just get chills even just thinking about it. And then she has to do something that is just going to blow your mind, and then you're going to again feel like you can conquer the world. You could do anything after you see Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken.
And you promise there's no sex scenes in this movie?
Gosh, I don't remember it. I don't. I really don't remember
it. Promise that she doesn't fuck a horse.
I don't remember that either. But
I think you would.
I've seen this more times than the Blue Lagoon. So
you've seen this at least 21 times.
22. And I own it on VHS. I'll let you borrow it. I'll mail it to you, Brennan. If you guys pick this movie, I will find a way for you to see it and love it just as much as I.
All right. Well,
I want to, before we move into our break, I want to ask just a quick sort of procedural question. Can I pick 2 films off of Brennan's list rather than 1 film from each of your lists?
Nope, you can't do that. No, Tim.
Okay.
No. I mean, I'm questioning the same thing because right now I'm dealing with like dog tractor. I don't know. I don't even know where to go with yours and Sodom. So no, you can only choose 1 from each list.
Okay.
And for the record, Michael Schofling gave up acting and is now making furniture as the owner of a woodworking shop.
Oh,
we need furniture. We probably need more furniture than we need actors. So
this
that's
is true. She inspired him, probably from this movie, to pursue another dream, which was furniture.
The horse jump over like a chest of drawers or something?
I can't tell you. I can't. You're gonna have to find out.
Okay. Is that
so Carrie, just one last question. There's a website called doesthedogdie.com.
Yep.
Where you go to a movie and it tells you what various traumatizing events.
Yep.
If there was a website called Does the Horse Break All 4 of Its Legs by Jumping into a Swimming Pool.com?
Yes.
What would this film's entry be on that website?
You know what, though? I wish I could answer that question for you. I don't remember. I'll tell you this. This is all I'll tell you.
That means it doesn't happen.
I do block out things that I find particularly traumatizing, and the only trauma I remember actually happens to a human, but usually that's what I would retain because it doesn't bother me as much. If something happened to the horse, I probably wouldn't be recommending it, though. I don't know. So
I feel like if the horse gets horribly mangled and has to be shot, you would remember that.
I think I would. So exactly.
We're going to go with it doesn't happen.
I agree. To you, Brennan.
Well, remember, you can find more details about all the movies we watched at our website, alternateending.com. You may be wondering about ways to support the show. You might. It could happen.
you might not too after this episode, but that's okay.
You might be trying to figure out if you already are supporting the show, how you can undo that. And you can undo that by going to our Patreon site.
Yeah, you can get early access and exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more from our Patreon site. Most recently, Tim talking about Can't Stop the Music on last week's whatever the fuck that's called, Pass the Popcorn. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about horses. Also, I want to thank all our listeners who support the show and make their Amazon purchases through our site. Doing it is easy. Just go to our website, alternateending.com, click on our Amazon banner, and seamlessly go about your purchases. All proceeds go to making our show better. I do not have the Amazon info this time because Rob is in Ohio shooting the first segment of a movie, and he's the one who usually does that for me. So next time, everyone.
Next time.
And that's that on that. Do we want? Should we let's just plow through this list, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, my number 2 is a horror movie from 1968, which, if you're not a horror historian, is the year that horror changed forever. Basically, with the release of Night of the Living Dead and Rosemary's Baby, 2 very different films, but ones that kind of pushed the horror genre forward away from what it had been in the 50s and early 60s, which was kind of nothing, and then Psycho, and then nothing again. But this movie is much more of a classic, elegant tale harkening back to the older days, but still showing there was some juice left in that format. It is a Mexican movie by Carlos Enrique Taboada. It is called Hasta el viento tiene miedo, which translated into English means even the wind is afraid. This is actually a film I did make Tim watch when I was at the Critics' Choice Patreon level.
You did.
I did.
Did he love it? Did you love it, Tim?
Well, I will let Brennan continue talking about it, and then I will render my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about girls who are stuck at a boarding school during spring break. They are haunted by the vengeful spirit of a student who died on campus. It's just very moody and atmospheric, and this is actually I was looking at Tim's old review again, so I'm just stealing this from Tim, but it does. I feel this. Never mind. I'm stealing the phraseology from Tim, but it's something I was going to say anyway. But it has this really blustery kind of autumnal aesthetic, even though it's set explicitly during spring, so it doesn't really make sense. But from everything from the music down to the title treatment, it just evokes this really like cool, crisp evening, which is the perfect night for a ghost story. And it's just a very excellent kind of slow burn, low key, kind of chiller horror campfire tale.
Yeah, my my memory of it is it feels like a wet movie. Like it feels like it's a wet night. Like it's kind of there's little it's not like raining, but it's kind of like spitting rain and it's blowing and there's like and maybe I'm completely making all of that up, but like sort of my brain the images I recall are like wet leaves in the moon. Like, but no, I dug this movie. For the record, I did think this was a really solid, as you say, a good ghost story, really beyond the atmosphere, which is certainly how I prefer my horror to come. So yeah, I co-sign this. This is definitely a movie worth seeing if you have not, and you most likely have not.
Hasta, El Viento, baby.
Tiene, miedo.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, see, to the point that I literally had to pay Tim to watch this movie because that's how devoted I am to getting more people to see it.
All right, that one.
I mean, if I pay you to watch my movies, Carrie, will you see them?
I don't feel currently like it's worth it, but I'm excited to hear about your 1 and 2. No amount for 3, 4, and 5. So tell me about your number 2, and I'll see if I can be paid for it.
My number 2 is so good.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2, definitely not an obscure movie. Definitely a movie that people treat like you just handed them like 6 pounds of uncooked broccoli and we're like, gotta eat this. And it's not as good. It's so good. It is indeed no less than my favorite film of the 1990s. A film that I think is absolutely essential viewing, despite the fact that it is 7 hours long.
Oh, God.
I am, of course, referring to 1994's epic of life in late communist Hungary, Sátántangó, by Ballad. A film that is so muddy and so slow and has a protracted scene of a cat being tortured to death. So I get it. I get why people are like, I don't want to watch this movie. You're wrong to not want to watch this movie. I assure you, because it is, first off, very beautiful. It is shot with this just wonderfully textured black and white that makes everything just kind of feel so physically rich and immediate, like you're stepping into this world. And it's also kind of secretly very funny, strong, but it has a sort of like crafty sarcasm to it in a way. It is ultimately a little bit satiric, and it has the kind of like snarkiness of a good satire. And again, I get it. It's a big buy-in. It's a great big buy-in. But I find it to be always exciting to watch because there's this sense in which, I mean, the images are all so goddamn beautiful that you always have something to look at that's just like very, very good. But I also think that there's a weird way in which like it kind of trains you so quickly how to watch it. This is a film that famously opens with a 10-minute shot of cows walking through the empty streets of a small Hungarian town. And over the course of that 10-minute shot, you go from this is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life to the entire universe is made out of cows walking through this muddy street. And by the time that first cut happens after 10 minutes, the feeling of just like profundity in your body at looking at cows, I just don't see how anybody could possibly not be into that point. So Sátántangó, 7-hour movie about mud. Go see it, everybody.
Oh God, I take that back, Tim. We can just choose 2 from Brennan's. I was wrong. I'm proven wrong. You were right. I've never said that before in all these years, but you were right. We don't have to choose one of each other's. I think that's fair and equitable. So
if you need to borrow my Blu-ray of Sátántangó, Carrie, I have it. So maybe you should borrow it and you should watch it in your downstairs screening room so you can be fully immersed in the movie and not have distractions for those 7 hours.
Yeah. Thanks. No, I think that sounds really, really great. Wow.
Well, look,
Brennan, any thoughts about Sátántangó?
I feel like anyone who's listened to me interact with you on the show before knows that I like to use Bellatar as a sticking point for reasons to distrust your film taste occasionally.
It's super weird how many people in my life seem to do that.
So I'll just leave it at that. I will say, if I was the type of person who even had 7 hours to give, both in terms of I physically can't stare at a screen for 7 hours because of my photosensitivity and my eyes, but even if I had that ability and the time to spare, I don't know. It's not in my nature, but I'm sure it's good if you want to give it that. Or, make it a 14-part sitcom, do it in 30-minute chunks. I'd try that maybe.
That's the other cool thing. Unlike other of the most of the very long movies, the filmmakers sort of like have built in, okay, here's where you can take a break. Bellatar gets really pissed off if you don't watch the movie in one sitting. So you got to watch it in one sitting.
Well, that's too bad.
Too bad
is
for
he
Bellatar.
Alive?
Yeah.
He is alive. He's retired, but he's alive.
Oh, okay, fuck. So, okay. Well, too bad.
We won't tell Bellatar that that we think his movie's boring. It's just too long.
Okay, well, it seems like if he has that expectation of his audience, he doesn't actually have the cinematic sensibility that I want in a director.
Same. And Tim, I think
for sure does not have the cinematic sensibility you want in a director, Brennan.
Oh no, I mean we know this. Anyway, Carrie, what's your number 2?
I'm just gonna judge right 2. I had another knock on it, but it's too tiring. It's too exhausting to go through this with this list. So I'm gonna jump to another one that is gonna blow your mind. Tim, you have seen this for sure, but I don't know that we've ever really marinated in it and thought about it. And I actually think that if I hadn't seen this movie, you would think this was a movie that you would be giving me to be cruel, because it is cruel. And it's punishing and it's awful, but it's still also so many wonderful things, and it's beautiful and it's traumatic and it's awful, but it's also so touching, and there's just so much going on in this movie. I saw this movie on a flight, and I wish I didn't. This is the only movie. I saw Tree of Life on a flight too. Don't regret that. But I do regret seeing this on a flight because I wish I had seen it on a bigger screen. It was really pretty. But even though it only was shot in a single location, saw it, was so traumatized by it that I went to the airplane bathroom and wept for a long time. Like an awkwardly long amount of time, where there was like a small line that had formed. But by the time I came out, my face was so puffy and swollen because it was like full weeping that like it was awkward. It was an awkward situation. The flight attendant was like, thought something was wrong, which it was. Instead of letting it go and saying, I'm actually fine, I started to recap the movie. It wasn't great. So this is 2020's The Father. Have you guys, Tim, you've seen this. Brennan, have you seen this?
Of course I've seen this. I was gaga.
No. I know you had. Has Brennan seen it?
No, it is the exact type of Oscar-nominated movie that I put last in my priority list of catch-up movies, and I did not find the time for it.
Oh, gosh, you have to see it.
I would go so far as to call this the only genuinely good film nominated for the 2020 Best Picture Oscar.
Yes. Completely agree. For those who haven't seen it, I'm going to sell you on it. Possibly, Brennan, you're going to have a hard time narrowing down from my list. I can already tell. But this one, I've never heard people talk about it.
I won't.
Oh, gosh, it's so good.
Oh.
It's so good. Okay, and I'm really weird about Alzheimer's movies or dementia movies because I have such paranoia about it in every facet of my life. Like, I think every other day, I'm like, I think it's already happening to me. But it's stress. But at the same time, it still is like really triggering for me. So Anthony Hopkins plays a guy who refuses assistance from his daughter. He wants to live alone. He doesn't want any help. And then it's this, it's sort of almost, again, like a single location. It's taking place in a home. But at the same time, it's him sort of trying to adapt to his circumstances, but he starts to have doubt around his loved ones and his own paranoia. But it's wrapped around this other story with Olivia Colman. Olivia Williams is in it. Imogen Poots is amazing in it as a caregiver. It is so tragic and sad, but at the same time, I don't know how to describe it, Tim. Like, there's layers to it that make it Sixth Sense-y, if that's an adjective, where you're
it's so heavily yoked to the subjectivity of the father,
yes,
whose brain is kind of, vanilla pudding at this point. that you're constantly like, you have to, as a viewer, reestablish yourself. Where are we? What's going on? I don't know what the context is. And you have to kind of figure that out on the fly because the movie's not giving that to you.
Yes, that's the best way to say that, Tim. That's exactly what's happening. But you don't know what's happening to you until it's happening, or like almost until after it's happened to you. And then you're questioning your own reality and, again, crying to the flight attendant. It's so, so good. This is The Father. If you haven't seen it, I would totally add it to a list.
I concur.
Oh.
I'm sure it's very good. It just seems it's too. That is a movie that the roadblock for me is just the central conceit is too much something that I don't particularly want to face in film, and that is a me thing, and that's not on the movie.
I know it's a me thing too, but I did it and I made it through. So I think should say something because you are more sensitive than I am to this kind of topic. So I'm sure that must mean it's extra good. It is extra good. So that's my number 2. Are we to your number 1, Brennan?
Yeah. My number 1. Okay. So I really don't like war movies kind of as a rule. But this is my favorite war movie of all of them. It's from 1959. It's a Russian movie, so I can be just as fancy as Tim sometimes. It's by Grigory Chukrai. It's called Ballad of a Soldier. I know Tim has seen this one.
Oh yeah.
It is so. This one is one where it's like I want more people in my sphere to talk about it, but it's definitely one that the very fancy film people have seen. But it's about this young soldier named Alyosha after kind of accidentally stopping some tanks during a siege. He is granted, I think, a week of leave. And so the film just follows him going through wartime Russia, but through the civilian parts of it, trying to get home to his village to help his mother fix her roof. And basically things keep going wrong for him. He keeps getting sidetracked. He meets all of these people along the way. He's just kind and gentle, and he's helping out these people. He's learning about their lives. And it's this very picaresque story of just him traveling through the Russian countryside, experiencing what civilian life is like during the war. And it's this very, it's this movie about this kind and gentle person experiencing the world. And it's also about how that kind and gentle person cannot be allowed to exist during wartime. And that's a very Russian way to go about it, but I find it a deeply moving film, and I just really love it.
Ballad of a Soldier. Ballad of a Soldier. Okay, that sounds
Carrie,
good.
I think you should pick this on Earth. You should just go all in.
I was gonna say they sound kind of similar, only this one sounds more digestible than Earth for me. But I've already locked in mine for Brennan a while ago, but this does sound good. I'm getting 1917 vibes for some reason, the way you're describing it. Is that inaccurate?
Oh, not one bit.
Not.
1917 is about the bravery of someone like going into the battlefield, and
Yes.
This is about somebody explicitly leaving the battlefield.
Leaving and running.
Battle
Okay.
of a Soldier is a film that is not about combat.
Okay.
Which is why I like it,
film.
but it's also it's about the just the shadow of war looming over the other stuff that is not the front lines.
Okay. It doesn't sound nearly as bad as anything I've heard Tim talk about today. So it's in my list. If we end up landing on that I can pick 2, it's in my list possibly. But we'll see. Unless Tim sells me somehow this number 1 ends up being like When Harry Met Sally or Sleepless in Seattle. We'll see.
Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sell you real hard.
Okay.
This is a film that I believe you should see. And you is the two of you, Brennan and Carrie, you is the listener to this podcast. I believe it is to the benefit of humanity that you see this film. Every last one of you. It is a film that's a crucial document about how we exist in the world, and a sort of testimony of what we are capable of doing in a negative way and how we have to make sure that we do not do it again. I feel genuinely if every person saw this film, the world would be a better place. Now, my last film, Sátántangó, was a 7-hour Hungarian film. And I'll bet you thought to yourself, well, 7 hours, that's going to be the longest film on Tim's list. It's not!
Oh, gosh.
Because my number one is the profound 9.5-hour epic in which Cloud Landsman spent a decade interviewing people about the Holocaust. People who were in the camps, people who were guards at the camps, people who worked at the camps, people who lived in the towns where the camps were. He tried to just get as much of the oral history of the Holocaust as a physical event I could possibly get. There is only interview footage in this film. There's not a single shot of, we see no dead bodies. We see no footage of the camps in operation. It is strictly watching people talking about what they did as survivors, as perpetrators, as like sort of de facto accomplices by knowing what was going on and not saying or trying to stop it. I'm referring, of course, to 1985's Shoah, which is just, again, everyone who needs to know about, not everyone, but like, this is a film that people know exists. And I think this is a film that people have put themselves through. But it's 9.5 hours and it's about the Holocaust. And when those two things go hand in hand, I get it's not a movie that you're like, ooh, this sounds like the day I'm gonna watch Shoah. But I think it is a truly one of a kind important film. It is people grappling with the defining historical event of the last 100 years. I mean, I think that's just hard not to call the Holocaust the most important thing that happened in living memory, and it's barely happened in living memory at this point. So I think that makes it like this all the more important because it now has become this kind of object that serves as a capsule of stories about what this thing was. And I know it's a cliche, but I am very much in favor of the mid-century belief that, like, if we let this memory fade, it will happen again. We have to not let that memory fade, and that's what this movie is. It is the defining work of, we have to remember this. And it's people remembering for 10 hours. And it is a complete, unambiguous masterpiece. So, Shoah. How about that, Carrie?
I just can't with your entire list. So when I first made the criteria that we all had to choose, and you were sort of like giddily like rubbing your hands together and like very on board, I should have known.
To be clear, Carrie, I would have picked Saló for you.
Yes, thank you. I would. Right now, I don't know where to land with you. That again, I completely agree with your sentiment.
If it helps, Carrie, Rock and Rule is by far the shortest film on my
that
list.
does help. That does help. And
actually,
again,
no, that's not true. Earth is shorter. Earth is shorter.
Yep,
Earth is shorter.
But sounds worse. So I don't know. We'll see where we get to. Again, I completely agree with your sentiment and the importance of not forgetting these things. I just don't want to remember it for that many hours ever. But I will read an article or two about it.
Tell you what, Carrie, if you want to get by with only watching the 3.5-hour movie he made out of the same mountain of footage, his last documentary about the Holocaust from 2013, Last of the Unjust, I'll let you sub that one in.
I'll think about it. But in the meantime, I will tell you about something. If I just want to copy paste everything you just said into my number one, a movie that everybody should see for its life-changing presence, for the way that it will steer the choices that you make in your life based on this movie. I know it has for me. In the job that I'm in, this movie came up during my interview with a very, I didn't realize how high up he was in the organization until afterwards. I didn't check who he was. So he's very many levels above me. I brought up this movie and was like, this movie is life. This movie, and he is a movie buff apparently, and was like, I don't think that is a very good movie on the fly during the interview. And I was like, oh no, I see your point, but it matters. This movie matters because it will change the trajectory of your life and how you think about life, much like Shoah as well. And this movie is 1998's Sliding Doors.
Okay, this is the first movie on either of your lists that I've actually seen. It's charming.
Yeah, right? Oh my gosh. Thank you, Brennan. This one, if you have not seen it, it truly has shaped my life because this movie crosses my mind every time I have to make a decision that feels uncomfortable or like, oh, I want to be complacent and not do something because of fear of whatever the outcome of the other one will be. But the premise of this movie is that this one woman early on in the movie comes and has to make a choice. She's like running towards an L train, or so it's the subway. I think she's in New York. So she's running towards the subway.
She's in England, I think.
Yeah, you're right. In England.
Oh, so it's the underground.
It's the Louvre.
Yeah.
Or, no, what is it called? The tube. Yeah, not the Louvre. The tube. So she's going to the tube. She's running to the tube. And then in one scenario, she makes it onto the tube. In the other scenario, she misses it. And then essentially it's like the story splits off into two parallel stories of how differently her life turns out based on one singular event being different. And I just love the premise of that. I think about it when I try to take risks. I think about it when I am afraid to do something but want to overcome it. And I always think about Gwyneth Paltrow and John Hannah in Sliding Doors to really push myself to jump on the tube.
I think I have brought this up the other time you talked about this film, Carrie, but have you ever seen the Polish film Blind Chance by Krzysztof Kieślowski?
Blind, B-L-I-N-D?
B-L-I-N-D.
No.
Same hook, but as an anti-communist art film.
Okay. Of course it is. Of course it is.
So you should check that one out.
Okay.
Tell you what, you can sub in Blind Chance for one of my 5 if you'd like to.
Oh my gosh, Tim. I would love you forever if I could do that. If that is a possibility, I would do that in a second right now.
Did you miss the part where I said anti-communist art film?
I mean, but I heard all of your other movies, and right now that's still sounding like a walk in the park right now. So I will take it. But yeah, that's it. That's my number 5, which I guess, Brendan, Tim, does that lead us to our selection of what
I
we're
think
going
it
to watch?
absolutely has to. We each now have to pick one film from each other's lists.
Okay, that Brennan has to go first.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think from Tim's, it has to be Rock and Roll. It really appeals to my specific cult film sensibilities, and I'm sad I haven't seen it already. But Shoah is one that I can't watch this week, but I will watch eventually, and much sooner than I would ever consider sitting down with Sátántangó.
Okay.
And for Carrie, you know what? Fuck it. I think The Blue Lagoon. I think that's the next film on that list that I will see.
Yes. I think Brennan's going to really like it. Here's what's going to happen, Brennan. You're secretly going to like it, and then you're going to come back, but you're going to feel self-conscious about liking it. But I'm going to just push you to push that aside. Think about the sliding doors and be like, what happens if I love it and I say it out loud? And I just want you to take that away.
Happen, Brennan. You're going to watch it, and you're going to text me, and you're going to ask if we can call the cops on Carrie before you have to talk to her again.
That's scenario B. That's the other side of the sliding doors.
That's if you don't make the sliding door.
That's right. All right, Tim, pushing it to you. What from Brennan's list are you going to pick?
I'm going to pick 100 Bloody Acres from Brennan's list. Definitely the film that sounds the most up my alley of the ones I have not seen.
Okay.
So.
And mine?
Very, very easily Sliding Doors.
Oh, and you've never seen it?
I have never seen it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, I hope you love it so much. Okay, so I'm going to take from Brennan's Easy, I Give It a Year. That was like, I'm already getting like, I wanted to leave actually when you were done talking about it, this podcast, and go watch it. That sounds so good. So I'm going to watch that. And then Tim, okay, I was going to choose Rock and Roll. So because you gave me this potential out for Blind Chance, is that a possibility that I can pick that truly?
I don't want you to think that it's something you're going to enjoy.
Oh, okay. Just tell me this. So I'll tell you, I was going to go Rock and Roll.
You can choose Blind Chance.
Okay. If I had to choose between Blind Chance or Saló, which one would I choose?
Blind Chance.
Okay, I'm going to take Blind Chance because that was my backup to Rock and Roll. So, all right. So,
you know what? I don't think I gave
Saló was more of a backup than Earth.
You sold me on Poop. I mean, like I was like, I like a good Poop movie. I feel like it could be good. I don't know. Maybe not. But neither here nor there. That's where we'll leave it. More to come, listeners, in terms of how we bring back our reviews of this in the next week or two. But more to come on that.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And as far as the audience list, okay, so the past 2 of these episodes that I've been on have been so esoteric and that people don't really overlap. So there's only one movie that 2 people mentioned. It is 1964's I Am Cuba. But then
it's a great film.
Yeah, and more people need to see it, evidently. And also 2 people gave honorable mentions to The Apple, which I would second on that. And then I have a quick mini list of movies that were mentioned in somebody's list that were then seconded by someone in the comments, because that's as close as I could get. There's 2011's A Separation, Batteries Not Included, 1987, Dragon Inn, 1967, Sour Grapes, 2016, and 1994's Palm Poko.
I will say about those films, this is kind of an example of why I had a hard time calibrating. I would have considered Dragon Inn to be a very widely seen film, and I am probably wrong.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to and what your circle is like. But yeah, so and then the winner this time for the free Amazon movie rental, if you'd like to claim that, you can email contact@alternateending.com. The winner is Salim Garami, also known as Sting. His list was Applause, Begone Dull Care, I Am Cuba, Who Killed Captain Alex, and The Wizard of Speed and Time, 1979, which is the short film, right?
Yes, I co-sign every one of those. And again, here's where my calibration was at. Begone Dull Care was one of the films on my long list, and then I was like, well, come on, everybody's heard of and seen Begone Dull Care. So I didn't include it.
I've never heard of that.
Well, it's good. You should see it.
Okay, great.
Everybody should see it.
Cool. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Twitter, where we're tweeting all the time, Instagram. More reviews and podcasts at alternateending.com. We're also on YouTube, Facebook. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and Google. Give us a nice review. I'd also love to hear what movies on our list have intrigued you the most to be included among the number of more people needing to watch. And that's gonna be that. So bye-bye.
What the hell was that noise?
That's my classic sign off.
That sound works for me on so many levels. I can't tell you how much I love this episode and how late I am to go to this play, but I would love to chat more. You guys are hilarious, and that was a lot of fun. And my caffeine high feels like it was reined in. Hopefully, maybe not. We'll find out later.
This is all still on the air, right? I just want to make sure that this is all still on the air.
We're cutting it after
I
Brennan
think it's still
says,
on the air.
No, it's definitely not. After Brennan says,
bye, everybody.
All right, then we're going to cut it from there.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye.